to shape and form our city. So you will see lots of students from all over the world studying in Sydney, which is really a highlight of, I guess, our schools and our state. We lead a very relaxed and healthy lifestyle. We're very much outdoorsy people, as we say. Sport's really important. Having a relaxed and balanced lifestyle is very important for us. You'll often see on the weekends that many Australian families are outdoors, particularly in the summer. And I think that's really appealing for international students, and particularly students from Asia who, may have never seen beaches as beautiful as ours. So that's one of the reasons why we very much enjoy welcoming our international students, because we've got beautiful tourist attractions that our students are familiar with, and they endeavour to live in our city because of, just the beautiful lifestyle that they're able to live here. We're a very safe city, and we also have a very high quality of education, given the fact that we do have some top universities in the world based in Sydney and in Australia as well. So most of our international students who are coming for high school, their end goal is to obviously apply for a university in Sydney or Australia. And the fact that they can do that without needing to really study a foundation course, they can get direct entry into a higher education provider, is really quite appealing for international students. We are English speaking as well, which is obviously essential to students, particularly when they are working in such an international environment. English is obviously required, and our international students do come to our schools and to Australia to work on their English and really master that for their future. I've touched upon this already, but Australia is a very multicultural country. Sorry about that, I didn't see that. We are a very multicultural country, and because of that, we are home to people from all over the world. And what you'll see is that our schools are actually very multicultural. What you'll see here is that the student population is going to be very different to what students are used to in their home country. So obviously in Australia, we've got lots of local students, or Australian local students, but Australian local students don't always have to have blonde hair, blue eyes, or brown hair and green eyes. They can definitely be Australian Chinese or Australian, Korean, born and raised in Australia, but they are of Asian background. So you'll see here that this student here is actually a local Australian student. And this is very common in all of our schools. So international students actually get to interact with students from all over the world, students who are going to be studying in the school as an international student, but also Australian students who are of different cultural backgrounds, which is really beautiful. You'll see that reflected in our schools as well, which is wonderful because we do have teachers who are bilingual and can provide that extra support to our international students. I've just included a little bit of information about our Australian education system here because I think it's really important to showcase how it's quite different. So in Australia, students actually start their school education when they're about 5 or 6 years old and they enter primary school. Primary school lasts about 6 years, so kindergarten to grade 6, 7 years in total, my apologies, including kindergarten. And this is probably, I guess, the age that we don't usually get a lot of Vietnamese students, which is totally understandable considering the welfare requirements for a primary school age student is different compared to those who are going to be studying in Australia for high school. So we generally see that our international students come to New South Wales and New South Wales Government Schools in the secondary school system. So once they successfully complete grade 6, they would then move to high school, and high school for us is grades 7 to 12. Now we do view that as a junior secondary, 7 to 10, and senior secondary, year 11 And we've made that distinction purely because of our New South Wales High School Certificate, which is the high school examination that students will do when they complete Year 11 and Year 12 in order to matriculate to university. So students who are looking to go to university will need to sit a New South Wales High School Certificate. Students must complete Year 11 and Year 12 at a satisfactory level in order to gain entry. I'll talk to you a little bit more about the New South Wales High School Certificate, but essentially for our schools in grade 7 to 10, which is the junior secondary program, students will study about 10 subjects. Of those 10 subjects, you will see about 3 elective units, and students can choose those elective units. But they do study about 10 subjects in total. And then in year 11 and 12, they focus a little bit more in preparation for their university course. So students in year 11 and 12 will study 6 subjects for their New South Wales High School Certificate, and they will do examinations and assessments for those 6 subjects in order for them to then gain entry into university. So for the secondary school program, we generally see more international students coming to New South Wales schools for that program. And for Vietnamese students, that's definitely where I guess we're targeting our focus. And we are obviously seeing a lot more students come, probably a little bit later, I feel now, given COVID, because parents do want to keep their children closer to them and at home. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we aren't seeing applications for grade 7 and 8. Generally, they are coming from grade 9 and above. Prior to the secondary school program, we do offer an intensive English course at our intensive English centres, which I will talk to you about later as well. And they are for the students who just need that extra help prior to commencing their mainstream program. I'll touch upon these really briefly because this is all covered on our website, which you have access to. And it is in our brochure, which again is available on the website. But we generally find our students and our families are choosing to study at New South Wales Government School for these reasons. One of them is obviously our exceptional teaching, which then leads to academic excellence. All teachers who teach at a New South Wales Government School are university qualified and trained. They need to be accredited by a governing body. That governing body essentially runs our curriculum. They're called the New South Wales Education Standards Authority. And all teachers need to be accredited by NSW. Because they're accredited, they're university qualified and trained. What that does mean is that they're equipped with the skills to teach our students at a really high level, which is why we see a lot of our students, local and international, do really exceptional things. And that's how we get our academic excellence. That's how we get fantastic results in the New South Wales High School Certificate from our international students. We have a huge focus on student welfare because our students are under the age of 18, and we recognize that it's really important for students to be well cared for, not just at a school level, but at a homestay level as well. And we do obviously we have really strict policies in place to protect our international students and students in general, to ensure that they're well looked after at school, at the homestay, so that they can focus on their studies and do well. I also mentioned the fact that, if students are coming to Australia and to New South Wales to study high school, they get direct entry to higher education providers. So what that means is after year 11 and 12, when they sit in New South Wales Higher School Certificate, they will receive an ATAR, an Australian Tertiary Admissions Rank. And that's what the universities look at to offer students a place at their university or at their institution. So they can actually get direct entry to any university that they wish to study at. Now, obviously, they need to meet the ATAR requirements, but what that means is students don't need to do a foundation course. They don't need to do a diploma prior to their, university degree in order for them to get in. They can actually get direct entry as long as they've met the ATAR requirements for their course. And obviously, Sydney offers many global opportunities internship opportunities, work experience opportunities, and that's really why we see our students coming to New South Wales. In regards to our schools and our program, we have over 300 schools across Sydney and New South Wales for our international students. We have shortlisted a number of schools on our website. Again, that's all available on our website for you to look at. And we have a school profile on each of those schools. So you're able to download and learn a little bit more about those schools from our website. That doesn't mean that you can't go to the school's website to get some more information, but it does provide just a little snapshot of our schools. So we've got schools on our, schools that are shortlisted on our website, and that's because they are the most popular schools on our program. Schools that aren't listed on the website, one may not have capacity to accept international students, or just aren't as popular amongst our international students. So what that means is it doesn't necessarily mean we can't place our students there. It just might mean that they're not as familiar with our program. But if you do have students who are looking for a particular school, please consult the Bright Can Achieve officers, and they will be able to speak to us and will advise accordingly as to whether or not those schools are available for international student enrollment. We've got 15 intensive English centres that are available for students to do their intensive English course, and they're based in a high school. So students are really immersed in that high school environment, which is, I think, really important for the transition to mainstream course. We do have schools that offer co-ed options, so boys and girls, as well as single sex. So we do have schools that are only for boys and only for girls. What's really important to note is we also have some specialist schools for those students who are really talented in performing arts. So that I'm talking about creative arts, dance, music, drama, and those students who are really talented at sports. So what I'm talking about is those students who are representing their country at a national or state level. If they are really interested in attending a specialist sports school, they will need to provide proof that they are representing their country in a sport at a really high level. So that's really only for those students who are really interested in those sports, in those specialized schools. A really important thing to note is we have a really wide range of subjects available for all of our students. So what that means is our New South Wales curriculum and our schools are really cater to every type of student. It's not all just about academics. It's about, creative subjects as well. And it's about offering students equal opportunity to excel in whatever they wish to excel in. All of our schools offer a wide range of extracurricular activities as well, which really complements students when they are wanting to work on their leadership skills or their mentoring skills. In regards to the intensive English centres, as I mentioned before, they are for those students who need that extra help with their English program. For our IECs, we only enrol students who are 12 years or older, and they will be studying at IECs located in Sydney and Wollongong, and there are 15 of them. I've got a list of them in the next slide. The intensive English program is actually studied through the curriculum. So what that means is it's not just conversational English that students are learning. They're actually learning the English of certain subjects. So they're learning how to respond to mathematics subjects in a test or in a classroom environment. So it's not really just about reading and speaking and writing, but really understanding what the question in an assessment or what the question from the teacher is being asked of them, and then learning how to respond to that either verbally or in a written format. So that's just a difference in regards to our intensive English course compared to other private English courses. We don't package with private providers. So if students don't meet our direct entry requirements for English, then we will be offering them 20 weeks of English via our IECs before they transition to the high school program. All teachers are university qualified and trained, and we do offer a smaller group smaller class sizes for the intensive program, English program, because we just feel that students need that extra support from the teachers. Once students successfully complete the IEC course, they will then transition to the high school. And we do have transition programs for those students as well, just to ensure a smooth transition. As I mentioned before, these are our IECs, and they are located across our schools in Sydney and Wollongong. In regards to subjects, as I mentioned before, we have a really wide range of subjects for our students. And what you will see here, and this is just a really short snapshot of what subjects are offered, what you'll see here is that our curriculum really caters for every student and for their differing interests. It's really important, I guess, for me, when I do meet with students and parents overseas, is that I explain to them how different our curriculum is. In Vietnam, I understand it is really more about the academics. And students need to study quite a lot of subjects every single year. But in year 7 to 10, as I mentioned before, they only need to study 10 subjects, and they opt for 3 elective units. Now in year 11 and 12, that drops down to 6. And the reason for that is because students are really preparing for their university entrance. And what that means is students start thinking about, oh, I actually am really interested in pharmacy, or I'm really interested in liberal studies and politics. So what happens then is that students start to decide, which subjects are actually going to be really helpful for my university degree. And what we do, and what schools do, is we will encourage students to choose subjects that, 1, they're good at, and 2, are of interest and related to their university degree. And what that means is it'll just help them achieve the ATAR that they need in order to get into the university of their preference. So what you might see is that there is going to be some students who are more interested in sciences, or rather science degrees, study science and mathematics. And that's because that's going to be useful to their university degree. Other students who, don't have any interest in studying pharmacy, dentistry, optometry, they might have more interest in liberal studies or economics. And so you might see those students doing more of these subjects here. So your economics, legal studies, and business studies, which isn't necessarily offered in Vietnam. And that's because they have that interest and they want to pursue those types of professions later down the track, which is why they're studying these subjects in high school, so that they're better prepared at university. Similarly, students who have no interest in, engineering, science degrees, or liberal studies at all, they might just do a range of different subjects purely because their goal is just to get the highest ATAR so that they can choose whichever course they want to get into. So those students might be interested in fashion and design. And so you might see them do visual arts or dance or drama instead. So what that shows you is that our curriculum really caters towards every type of student, which is why we see so many different students choosing to come to New South Wales, and why we see students doing really, really well in their HSC as well, simply because, they're choosing subjects that they're really interested in. They're not required to study the science subjects that they would have had to study in Vietnam. And we do see students really excel in a New South Wales, education system. In addition to fantastic subjects that are offered at our schools, we've got really exceptional resources for our students. So this is really just a snapshot of what some of our schools like, but all of our schools are technologically advanced in that we've got Wi-Fi in all of our schools. There's really modern technology available. We've got 3D printers for our STEM classrooms. We've got computer laboratories for students. All students are required to bring a laptop to school. So gone are the days of really carrying around, really heavy textbooks and pen and paper, really. Everything is pretty much done on a laptop. What you'll see here is that our schools have also been designed to really allow for group work and individual learning. and collaboration as well. So all this furniture here, and this is actually a primary school, these classrooms have been designed so that the furniture can be manipulated in a way to facilitate individual learning. So, students could pull away this couch here or this learning pod and just do a little bit of online individual reading or individual learning. But in addition to that, they can actually move all this furniture so that, they create an environment for collaboration. And what that shows is that the way that we are teaching our students in both primary school and high school really is focused on future focused learning and really creating skills and teaching students these skills that they will be using later down the track, whether that be in university or in their future professions. So we're really trying to teach soft skills to our students as well. It's not all just about the academics. It's not enough just to be achieving fantastic results in an exam. It is about how you present. It is about how you're able to work with others and be flexible and adaptable. So that's just an example of what our schools look like. We've got really state-of-the-art gyms for our more active students and new music and science laboratories as well. As I mentioned before, it's really important for all international students to be well supported. And because of that, we've created a fantastic student support and welfare system in our schools, which really complement what we do at DE International. So in any school that there is an international student, we always have an international student coordinator who is there to help students settle into school, to really tackle any homesickness issues. And they are always the student's first point of contact. They provide ongoing support and assistance to our students. We work very closely with our international student coordinators as well. So DE International has a designated student support team that works very closely with our schools to ensure that if there are any issues with schools or with students, that they're addressed pretty much straight away. Students can pretty much talk to their international student coordinator about anything if they feel comfortable, and any issues will be escalated to us for further action. We have year advisors in all of our schools, who are required to supervise each student and monitor academic progress. So they are the teachers who will tell us if a student is not performing very well, and will advise what the next steps are. How do we intervene to ensure that that student gets across the line and graduates from, their year 11 and year 12 program successfully. We've got school counsellors and welfare teachers to assist with any personal issues, ESL and bilingual staff as well, to provide just that extra English support for those students who do need a little bit of help, and careers advisors who offer assistance with subject choices, university preferences, and advice on career options as well. All of our schools offer some sort of homework centre as well. So that's just basically, 2 or so days through the week where there are teachers available for students to consult about any issues that they're having with their homework. So students will stay back after school hours with a school teacher, and school teachers offer their time to really help students with their homework. Sometimes ex-students, so sometimes ex-international students come by and help as well, which is really lovely, because students will then be able to interact with previous students and just are able to work through any issues with their homework, which is a fantastic free service that's offered by all of our schools. On the topic of student wellbeing and support, it's really important that all international students are aware of how important their health and safety is. And for that reason, our office has partnered with Medibank Private to offer a comprehensive OSHC product for any international student that is going to apply for our program. So Medibank is a very strong partner, and I actually had just had a call with Medibank yesterday afternoon. Our Medibank partnership manager was calling me about a few things, but we work really closely with them to ensure that we have the best product, comprehensive OSHC product on offer for our international students. Our admissions team will issue offer letters for students with the OSHC product, and that's because it is our preferred OSHC insurer. And the reason for that is because we've worked with them really closely on providing the best service and the best coverage. It is a requirement that all international students do purchase OSHC as part of their visa, and that's to cover them for the duration of their program. What's different with the Medibank OSHC product that we have on offer is the fact that we do have a really close relationship, which means that we are able to negotiate and intervene when students are in a difficult or emergency situation that needs some extra support. If students do purchase their OSHC policy from other providers, we're not able to provide the same support as we would provide if a student was with Medibank. And the reason for that is because we have established systems in place, and we've all received training from Medibank on how to speak to our students and how to discuss things with hospitals. So a perfect example is actually when we earlier last month, we actually had a student who had purchased their OSHC policy with a different provider and was required to be admitted to hospital for some issues. Now, at the time, they were there with their parent. So the family from Vietnam was actually here in Australia. And the family had to incur extra costs that were quite high. And upon assessment and comparison, if they were with Medibank, they wouldn't have been required to pay those out-of-pocket expenses, because we as a department would have been able to intervene and negotiate those costs to a certain extent. So they wouldn't have been they wouldn't have been fully covered, but we would have been able to negotiate those costs to be a little bit lower for them. So that created quite a lot of distress, not only for the student, but definitely for the family. And they couldn't quite understand why they were out of pocket, considering they had already paid for an OSHC product. So that came down to the fact that the agent that they were with didn't tell them that we offered a product that was, to be frank, a lot better, and that we were able to manage that relationship with the hospital. The agent actually found out that they had to manage that relationship, and they found that quite confronting and quite a lot of work. So in future, we are looking for our students to be covered by Medibank, because we can just offer that support that agents can't really. And we're able to take that burden away from our agents and offer a better service to the student, because at the end of the day, it really is all about the student experience. And if that student was with Medibank, they would have been covered a lot better, and the cost, their out-of-pocket expenses would have been a lot lower. So this is why we do encourage students to really have a think about the OSHC policy that we do offer. And if Bright Can Achieve can obviously speak to you about this in a little bit more detail, but we do recommend that our students do purchase the Medibank policy. So as I mentioned before, Medibank will cover 100% of the cost for emergency ambulance services. They will obviously cover the cost of the hospital visits. Now, this is obviously negotiable, but it really just depends, I guess, on what kind of service the student is getting from the hospital. But because we've got that close relationship with Medibank, we can intervene and we can assist the family if there is an emergency situation. Another reason why we do promote Medibank is the fact that we've actually just established an ongoing support service for our students. And it's not just about, tapping into these services when you're sick. It's about tapping into these services if a student has anxiety about, studying, or if they're not coping with, being newly arrived in Australia. So it doesn't really matter if a student isn't unwell, like physically unwell. It's all about the mental health as well. And this is why we have offered all of our students the opportunity to tap into a 24/7 student health and support line. And we've teamed up with Medibank to offer this service. We've got counselors and psychologists who can actually speak the languages that our students speak. So there are counselors who are of Vietnamese background and can provide that extra support to our students. In regards to our homestay policy, or rather our carer policy, students who are coming to New South Wales at a very young age, so kindergarten to year 4, must live with their parents who are going to be guardians whilst they are here. In year 5 to 8, which is not very common, like I said, for our international students to come at such a young age, but they might come in high school, so year 7 and 8. So they have an additional option of either living with their parents who are here on a guardian visa, or they can live with a direct relative. Now that's a blood relative as defined by DHA. When students are a little bit older, so year 9 to year 12, they have an extra option of living with an approved homestay. And there are 2 options with that: a parent nominated carer situation, or a homestay that's organized by our office. So as I mentioned before, in regards to a student living with the parent as guardian, this is usually the mother or the father, and we don't issue a welfare letter for this arrangement. For a direct relative, again, we do not issue a welfare letter for this arrangement, and it is a blood relation. So this is a direct relative as defined by the Department of Home Affairs. Siblings on student visas aren't able to be approved as a direct relative either, because they aren't able to properly care for a student if they are on a student visa. The 2 other options are a parent nominated carer or a homestay. So parent nominated carer we define as a distant relative or a family friend who has a genuine relationship with the student. And the final option is with the homestay. So that's where the department, DE International, will fully organize the homestay for the family, and the host would be approved to be the carer for the student whilst they are here studying in New South Wales. If a student is going to be placed in a homestay that's approved by us, they will be placed by one of our 3 homestay companies whom we work with. All adults are required to have a New South Wales police check and need to be approved by our office to be an appropriate carer for the student. So we won't place a student in a homestay that we aren't satisfied with. The host would be the student's carer, but we as a department would hold the welfare letter for that student. So what that means is we are responsible for the student's welfare and will need to be informed of any changes to that student's welfare. We do ensure that all of our homestays, parent-nominated homestays and homestays, meet our quality homestay requirements, which means that students must have their own bed with a desk, and they sometimes get their own bathroom, but sometimes they share with other family members. We also now, due to COVID, we do need to ensure that our homestay families are able to properly to offer isolation arrangements should students be in the unfortunate case of becoming sick and contracting COVID. Now, we luckily haven't had too many of those issues before, but we are starting to work with our homestay companies a little bit more, and ensuring that our homestay families are able to properly care for our students who are coming back to Australia. And if those students do contract COVID, then we just need to make sure that they are well taken care of and are able to isolate should they contract COVID. We don't place a student in a homestay where there are more than 3 international students as well. That's actually reduced now even to 2. There's usually only a maximum of 2 international students per homestay. In the event that a student needs to live with a nominated carer, this option is only available for students who are in grade 9 and above. We need to ensure that the carer is over 25 years old as well. We don't place any students, international students, in an arrangement where there's only 1 single male. We do ensure that there are proper arrangements available for our parent nominated carers. Even if it is a genuine relationship, we just need to make sure that the student will be well taken care of by that carer. One of the things we do look at is the relationship of that parent-nominated carer to the students and the parents. So there is a parent-nominated homestay form that students will need to complete, and that's all available on our website. And we would like further information about that carer's relationship with the student. So if we find that it's not a genuine relationship, then we will advise that we won't be approving that parent-nominated carer relationship, and that we will be moving them into a homestay arrangement that has been approved by our office. If you are looking at placing a student in a parent-nominated carer homestay, we do need to allow for extra time and processing because the nominated carer here in Australia does need to meet extra requirements. They do need to do their working with children check. They do need to provide a police check as well. So there is a little bit of extra work with the parent-nominated carer. Now, with the homestay, sometimes, as I mentioned before, parent-nominated carers who don't meet our parent nomination requirements will be required to register as a regular homestay. And what that means is that they do need to go through the regular registration process. So they need to register with our homestay companies and be on their books to be approved carers for the student. For a homestay that's organised by our office, we have very strict homestay standards, and we just need to make sure that that parent-nominated carer meets those homestay standards as well. So we do even go into the detail of checking how many people are living in each room as well, because we do want to make sure that our students do get their own room. Airport pickup fee, and that service is compulsory. So if a student is going to live with a distant family member, that's not allowed. They aren't allowed to pick that student up from the airport. We will arrange that for the student. Again, we work with 3 homestay companies to help us with our homestay arrangements and our parent-nominated homestay arrangements as well. In the event that students change or decide to change their welfare arrangements, we need to be informed in advance. So we do require parents to provide a letter stating why they are requesting for a change in homestay or parent-nominated homestay. And we will go through the proper checks as well and clearances if they are requesting to stay with another carer. If students are under 18, we do recommend that they live with an approved guardian or carer and that they live in a family environment. For students who are over the age of 18, technically they are able to live on their own, but we do not recommend it. We still encourage them to live in a family environment, and they do need to provide us with an emergency contact should any emergency situations occur. In regards to age requirements, international students tend to be a little bit older than our local students, which is why I've popped this up here. As you can see, for our senior school here, we do have maximum age requirements. So for year 10, for example, we won't consider students who are above the age of 18. Generally, this isn't an issue for our Vietnamese market at all. It tends to be more of an issue for our Chinese students. But just something for you to keep in mind, that we do sometimes accept students who are a little bit older, and for whatever reason they may have had to repeat a grade in their home country, and so that's why they are a little bit older for year 10 or year 11, but just something to keep in mind. In regards to academic requirements, we require students to provide 2 years of academic reports for us to assess. For primary school, we just need to see that they are performing at a satisfactory level in literacy and numeracy. For year 7 to year 11, we just want to make sure that they are doing well in their academic subjects. So good passing grades for us means anything above 6.0 GPA. We do focus on English, maths, sciences, history and geography, and Vietnamese as well. We do want to see that they are performing well in those subjects before we agree to accepting that student. Even though we've got quite a lot of schools in our program, we don't require different academic requirements for different schools. If they meet the minimum requirements for our program, they can technically be placed at any school on our program. We don't have differing requirements. For our English requirements, Obviously, there are two ways for students to get into our program. One is via direct entry, which means they've met the English requirements, they don't need the IEC program, they can go straight into high school. The other option is for the IEC program, so a 20-week package program with our high school program. So students who, one, don't want to do an IELTS or TOEFL test, or one, have done the IELTS or TOEFL, but they haven't met the requirements for direct entry, they will automatically receive a 20-week IEC program, IEC offer with their high school program. So what that means is they need to complete the 20 weeks of the intensive English course prior to transitioning to their high school program. If, on the other hand, students can show that all of their subjects have been taught in English for a minimum of 2 years, or that they've met the English test results, then they can get direct entry in. So for IELTS, because generally IELTS, we see IELTS tests for the Vietnamese market, that's a 5.0 for year 7 to 10 and a 5.5 for year 11, with no more than one band, 0.5 lower than the required score, essentially. So generally for our Vietnamese students, we do see that they are able to get direct entry in, particularly, and do quite well, particularly if they've met the IELTS requirement. But there are students who would prefer to do the IEC program, and that's totally fine as well. If a student has, for example, for year 11, they're wanting year 11 entry, they've got a 5.0 IELTS, we can technically offer them 10 weeks of English, but that is up to the admissions officer to make that assessment. So what I would encourage is, if a student can meet the requirements for direct entry, that's fantastic. If they're just a little bit lower, you can still submit that documentation to them, to Bright Can Achieve, Bright Can Achieve will liaise with our admissions team, and they might be able to advise, a slight reduction in that English course. But I would be recommending that if they can't meet the direct entry requirements, that they do the 20-week IEC program. In addition, obviously, to our entry requirements, both English and academic, another requirement for entry into our program is obviously a successful visa. And I will touch upon this very briefly because, Bright Can Achieve will be really working with you about this, is that we do really want to see our students successfully applying for their visas. We don't want to see any visa refusals, because it does obviously create issues. So when you are obviously working with the families to put together your statement of purpose, which is required, we really recommend that you address in your statement of purpose this list of criteria. And this is all available on the website as well. And the Department of Home Affairs immigration officers will be assessing visa applications based on this criteria. So it makes sense for parents to be really addressing all of these in their statement of purpose, so as to avoid student visa application refusals. And we have seen quite a few this year. So one of the things is, obviously, a simple thing is really understanding how much it costs to live in Australia, what the tuition fees are, what the education system is like, and really being able to answer questions should the visa immigration officer call for an interview. And this is where Bright Can Achieve will be helping us to really screen applicants prior to application submission to our office. One of the things that we've noticed is that, one of the things that we've noticed when we have looked at visa refusal letters is that sometimes students and parents aren't providing all the documentation that's required of them. And the immigration officers aren't actually required to go back and ask you to provide them. So it would make sense to provide all the documentation from the get-go. As I mentioned before, clearly addressing all 6 factors and providing evidence in your statement of purpose is going to be essential in the visa assessment process as well. Understanding all, how these documents are used by the immigration officers in making their assessment will also be key to avoiding visa refusals as well. And obviously, sometimes there will be interviews at random. So these are just some things to think about. And obviously Bright Can Achieve will address these with you in due course when you are submitting applications to us. The final thing that I will mention is we do have tuition fees available on our website. So at the moment, we only have our 2022 fees listed, and that is because we're not able to release our 2023 fees yet. So just something to keep in mind that, they are subject to change, but generally these are the 2022 fees. I can't actually confirm, I'm not able to, unfortunately, confirm if they will go up. I'm hoping that that announcement will be made as soon as possible, but until I get the green light from senior management, I can't make a comment on it. But if you are speaking to families, you can just use 2022 fees as a guideline, but mention to them that they might be up for slightly higher fees should we make the announcement about an increase in 2023 fees. There is a lot of information on our website, and I can understand that sometimes it is a little bit of information overload for yourself and for the families, but there is lots of useful information on there that you can always refer to. So as I mentioned before, school profiles are really key, particularly when you are advising to parents and students about what kinds of schools they are interested in. You can always use those school profiles as a guideline, and you can encourage them to look at the school's websites as well. All schools have a school website, which is publicly available and accessible, and you can use those websites as a basis for providing some information to students. You can also find all documentation on our website as well, and any brochures as well. So that's actually all of the information that I have for you today. I'm happy to take questions, as I mentioned to Peter and Selena. If you do have any specific questions that you do want to ask. On the flip side, if you are wanting to maybe just think about all that information that I've delivered to you in the presentation, and ask Peter and Selena, they are happy to also collate all of those questions or answer them on my behalf. And we can address any issues or queries that you have that way. But I'll leave it up to you guys. If you do have any questions, I am more than happy to answer them. And I'm just opening the chat here. Yes, we do accept academic and general. So most of our students actually provide academic. They do the IELTS academic examination, but we do accept both. Thank you, Selena, for answering that. I just realized that you answered that as well. So thank you.
Thank you for this question. So I think it's time for you for the next meeting, right?
Oh, I can stay on for a little bit longer if anyone does have anything that they want addressed. That's totally fine. Like I mentioned to Peter, I'm okay to designate a little bit of time to Q&A should any of your partners have any questions.
Dạ, không biết là anh chị mình có câu hỏi này cho Mr. không ạ?
Hi, Josephine. I have a
Hello.
question in terms of English requirement waiver. So
Yes.
as you mentioned earlier, if the students study the English, the courses within minimum 2 years totally taught in English. So he or she doesn't need to provide the IELTS or English certificate. But I wonder if this course need to be taught in an English-speaking country, or just like in international school in Vietnam?
Yeah, good question. So essentially, as long as they can prove that all of the subjects were taught in English, we will waive that requirement. So it doesn't necessarily need to be in an English-speaking country, but essentially the subjects would have needed to be taught in English. So if there is some sort of documentation that proves that, then we're happy to waive it. So usually what we see is in international schools, they do that, so we can waive that English requirement.
Thank you, Josephine. And I also have another question in terms of regarding the English as well. So for the student who have the English ability is a little bit lower than the English requirement, but he or she need to enroll in the grade 11. So do they need to enroll in a certain in-text in a year?
Yeah, so for year 11, we generally would prefer, and most schools actually prefer that year 11 students start in January. Now, there are going to be some schools that will accept year 11 students in April, but there's not a great, like they would prefer their students to start in January. So what I would suggest in that case is that if they do require the English, to apply so that they can complete their IEC program prior to the year 11 course. So for example, if they don't meet the English requirements at all, and they definitely need 20 weeks, what we would be suggesting is that students who are planning to start year 11, they do their IEC program from July of the previous year, and then join the year 11 program the following year. So for example, if you've got a student, like a lot of our IEC students at the moment would be doing, they'd be in their first term of IEC, they'd be commencing their second term of IEC in October, and then they'll be moving on to year 11 in January next year. If a student, for whatever reason, has only achieved a 5.0 IELTS, sometimes our admissions team will make concessions and will suggest, 10 weeks should be enough. And in that case, what we'd be suggesting is that a student does their IEC program in October, right? So term 4, and then they do their year 11 course in January. Now, at the moment, we're not accepting any applications for term 4. It's too late to submit an application. So we will get a few year 11 students who are thinking, oh, I really need to do my IEC program. What do I do? And so if they have 5.0 IELTS, we could suggest, again, a 1-term enrollment in January next year. And then they would only be able to do their year 11 course from term 2 at those schools that will accept the year 11 entrance in term 2. There's not going to be not all schools will accept year 11 students that start in term 2, so that'd be April. So it would really depend on, 1, what school the student wants to go to, and 2, what their English level is like, because if they are really struggling, then I probably would advise them to plan ahead and make sure that they do the 20 weeks prior to their English course.
Thank you so much.
That's all right.
So are there any questions for Mr. Fins for admission or today or something that you said? Please give the answer now, or all of you can give the answers to class in the chat, and then we can work with Mr. Swin to give the answer with it. Yeah, so maybe it's time, right?
Yeah, I might have to go. I'm very sorry. But like I said, if you do have any specific questions that you feel weren't addressed in the presentation, please feel free to forward them on to Selena and Peter. I'm sure that Selena and Peter would probably be able to answer them. Should they not be able to answer them confidently, I'm more than happy to obviously support them in my response to you. But I do apologize that I'm not able to stay on for the whole time. But I do hope that you did find that informative. And we look forward to receiving some applications from you via Bright Can Achieve shortly. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And if you do have any other questions, feel free. I will leave it to Peter and Selena. All right, Peter, I will head off. Feel free to email me afterwards.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Jophine.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, our
Thanks.
partners, for joining us today. So we will send you the presentation, also the recording video of this training as well. Yeah, have a nice day.
Nice day.